So, good evening, and this is our final session. And before you blink, you'll have your exam. So we'll go right back from the beginning, look at some foundational stuff, and then I'll go and just touch on some critical topics for the purpose of the exam. And so, in terms of the exam structure, six, just like the other master's courses I teach, is 6 questions, and you just choose three. There are no compulsory questions, and they're all essay type questions. Um, so they said early before some of you came at the end, I have about 3 review questions that we'll go through. Just about 2 of them, which are similar to the types of questions you will get in the exam. Right? So as they go through, if there's any point you want clarity on anything, you can just intervene. So I'll do it in the form of review, but it's really testing your knowledge. So as they go through, I am posing questions so that you're all part of the process, right? So if you remember at the beginning, which is all back in February, end of February. Can you remember that? It's all back in the end of February we began, and it's now bordering May. Right? So you remember the foundation, we do this model of the environment of business, the external environment, the internal environment, which is dynamic, it is changing, it's like real life. So it's like what is happening in the US, all the volatility. So Rory, you and I have to talk about Trump. I just look and they say the Dow now drop. They say all the gains that they had on the last day, they say it's a 500 and something drop. When Trump got the market so unstable, well, people don't understand what happened. Whenever that drop, people losing tens of millions, and billions. So they say it dropped now 500 and something points today alone. So the guy said that they say the investors are going on a premise. This is just talk. But they say if it go into a real trade war, the markets can crash in a big way, man. So bull lesson, yeah, man. Of course, boy. But they say what the market is up and down because people are arguing this is just power plays, but it will not be a trade war. But they say anytime a trade war start, people are going to withdraw money and the market's going to drop in a big, big, big way. So, but they say even that 500 and something points drop today, so I'm sure they're going to be big. In fact, I gather a number of people in Wall Street have been coming out saying this got to stop. This is madness. The city has to stop. This is creating a lot of instability. But the point I'm making here, folks, that's the nature of business in the markets. Markets are very unstable. You boom today. Some action, a war. Suppose a war breaks out or some violence, some terrorist act. Like in the Caribbean, all you want, like last year, you had 2 hurricanes hit up north, Tortola, Antigua, Barbuda, Dominica, and Dominica had just gone big into tourism, ecotourism. So all of the forests and all of that, the natural forests and all the ecological benefits they had for tourism, not nature tourism, wiped out because the hurricane flattened the forest. But instead they had just turned towards tourism as their main foreign exchange earner. Because again, the bananas with the Europeans not giving them the special privileges. So that's the nature of the market. You move towards tourism, you had the potential to make multi-millions, and one hurricane now set you back many, many decades. So that's how volatile the external environment. So remember, we also looked at the issues of competitive advantage, competitiveness. These are some terms you must be familiar with, right? So Lisa, once we say competitive advantage, what do we mean? That's good. With another word, Tanya. Well, you're explaining what could cause you could get an advantage. But the question is, when we say a competitive advantage, what is it? Not what causes it. What is it? Correct. Something you do better than your competitor, right? Or significantly better than your competitor. Or at least what gives you the edge over your competitors could be a synonym you can utilize, right? So that's where you have this significant way of doing something better than your competitors. What you're getting into, Tanya, would be the things that would help you to do these things better that would lead to competitive advantage. So we'll touch on that a little later. And so competitiveness is driven by a competitive environment. We know the issues of the linkage to vision. Everybody here would know a vision and a mission. So a vision is vision, mission, right, for the future. Right, is your purpose for existence. And then you have the strategic goals and the business strategy, right? And the strategic goals will be these long-term goals that you're going to establish for the business. And then we also went on to talk about the business model, competitive strategies, and creating the strategic plan. So what we were saying, the text deals with strategic management, which is this broad concept of looking at strategies and strategic plans and models in an organization. But the course is strategic planning and management, but the emphasis is on the strategic planning aspect and some aspect of management, since they're really partners. And then you have management actions. What are the management activities that will support the strategic planning process? Right? So everybody here should, or some of you might remember, when we say business model, what are we talking about? Business model involves, what does the business model involve? Sorry? Right, so you can have brick and click, or you can have brick and mortar, or you can have, okay, just click. So give us some examples of brick and click, brick and mortar. Give us some examples. Sorry? You said that? eBay, right. eBay is click. Another one, Amazon is also click. Sorry? Which one? That is true, because Amazon actually moving towards brick, which is strange, right? But they're actually buying up a lot of bricks and mortar businesses. So what's the purpose? Why do companies want to move towards click? Which is the most important? So what's the most important reason why do they go towards click? Right, to reduce your costs, right? So you reduce your operating costs, your fixed costs, this is where your accounting knowledge would come. You reduce your fixed costs, your variable costs, and remember the business model is based on the premise of how you generate revenue. So I can generate revenue from the traditional going to business, or I can generate revenue from going online and buying stuff, but I still need to manage my costs. So the business model looks at how you generate revenues, how you manage costs in order to generate a profit. And if you remember, in addition, we have given some very practical examples of business models in the Caribbean where we look at Courts. And you say people might assume Courts would make most of its money just from selling furniture and fridges and appliances, but Courts can make most of its money from, right? I would prefer to say the finance arrangements or the finance models that they utilize, right? So even car companies now don't make money from selling cars; they make money from the finance arm. Where instead of going to a bank now, nobody goes to banks are in trouble now when it comes to car loans, because all the car companies now are associated with finance companies, or like Simpson Motors, they have their own finance company. So you come to me and you buy the car from me, but the banks no longer get the majority of money. That each car company now had its own finance. So that's part of the business model too. Unique and creative ways of generating revenues, apart from the traditional where I am a car company, so I make money from the margins of sales. On the old days, Rory, when you go to one of the general appliance stores, when you buy a fridge, the company made money from the margins. You bought the fridge for $900, you sell it for $1,200, and that's your profit. But there's so many companies doing appliances now that the margins are very small. But when you have the finance arrangements now, like what Courts do and what the other businesses would do, I can give you the thing. You give me a minimum deposit, and over time, it's the finance arrangements that would allow me to get my profit, not just selling something and making money from the margin. So like people along the road who sell food, you get that from basic margins, or the average restaurant. You come, you buy the food, and then they take out my expenses. right? Whatever much I sell it at, that is my profitability that is there, you see. And then, so these are some tools. This is important. This is very important in terms of your exam preparation. The tools that are utilized in analyzing the environment, both external and internal, right? And remember, we looked at external tools of assessment and we looked at internal tools. Right? So the key thing to remember when we talk about external analysis, we're talking about things in that environment of business that don't necessarily um, they impact on the business consistently, and it's challenging. It's very challenging for any business really to change the environment. The environment impacts on the businesses. So you can have the pest analysis as a tool for it. You can have the pesty analysis as a tool for it. You can have aspects of the SWOT, right? So the OT is for the external, the SW is for the internal. We have the 5 forces model that everybody should be familiar with. And then we have the competitive profile matrix and value chain analysis. So which ones are internal, which ones are external? Which are the tools that we have on the board? Right, the 5 forces, value chain analysis, that should be value chain analysis. Value chain analysis is internal, correct? Right. What about the competitive profile matrix? No, that's internal, yeah. It looks like the company's competitiveness. You're assessing your own competitiveness. But the 5 forces looks at the external competitive forces and factors. Anybody can tell me what the 5 forces are? You can remember those? Bargaining power of the supplier. Correct. Threat of new entrants. And competitive rivalry, right? Which is the most critical force? Correct. Excellent. Right. So what allows customers or suppliers to gain bargaining power? No. Tanya, what allows the customers or the buyers to have high bargaining power? Sorry? What about the competition? Why? Correct. And that's the key word, they have choices. So the principle is the more choices customers have, they have the power. That I can go into your store list and I can say, what's the price? $50, 50 US dollars. And I can say, but I know somebody who sells it 49 US dollars. And they can say, well, this is what we're selling it at. And they can say, okay, thank you. I will go to the competitor. And you could actually go to the competitor and come back and say, you see what price I got it at? Right. So customers compare prices. So when they have a lot of choice, in fact, the more choices customers have or the buyers have, because it can be a commercial buyer too, right? So you can have a company, Rory, as a buyer where the company, like Courts, buys stuff from people. So in that sense, Courts is a buyer buying from suppliers. So where Courts has more options to buy stuff, its fridges and its TVs and its stoves and its chairs and its beds, the more options they have, the more power they have to push down. So they could argue, look, we can buy 500,000 units, but you need to give us a 20% discount. Now, when they know there are many people out there trying to get them to buy, because they know the power of a Courts, that is where they can push them to reduce. And that's where people negotiate discounts. Then that's where commercial buyers are able to negotiate, that they argue, look, I know somebody who's selling it better than you. What are you willing to do? I can guarantee you. And if you buy in bulk, Rory, that's what they do. You use their buying power. I can buy $1 million of these units in a year, but you have to give me better discount than your competitor. And they tie them into these, or they can go into a 2-year agreement. Over the next 2 years, I can assure you, I will buy $1 million in your units every year, but you need to guarantee me this price. Yeah. Correct, right. And once you have that power, once you know you can go to somebody else, right, and they can offer you better prices, they can push your prices down, you see. But if you know, as individual customers, that's what we do. Right? Maybe women more than men, right? Because I shop by impulse. I go in and the price is right for me there, and I really don't want to walk a lot. So it's reasonable I buy it. But I know ladies tend to be more conscious of cost and price. Y'all are better money managers, so you always shop around for a whole day and then say, yes, this is the one time. Yeah? So time you're shopping from morning to evening and say, all right, I know see the one I want. Right? Time you see, but the fellas don't shop like that, right? Y'all, I tell you, y'all are good money, y'all are better money managers. Y'all are very patient in the shopping, but I'm very impatient. I'm looking for one store that has what I want and wants it what I want, and I have the money on me to buy it. But I surely am hopping from mall to mall and this store to this store. Even if I see something cheap, I say, well, I got what I wanted. Right? But the point we're making is that the choice is the main thing that would make the buyer. But if there are very few suppliers, you don't have a choice. So when they set their price, you got to buy it at the price that is there. So like oil, once the oil producers determine that they're going to up the price, that's generally you just got to pay because they have the power, the bargaining power. So these tools, folks, I'm saying to you, particularly the external tools, how a pestle is used, the purpose of a pestle, right? The SWOT, the importance of the SWOT, and the tools analysis, which is where, remember, as we said, you now take your strengths to take advantage of the opportunities and the strengths to try to minimize the weaknesses. So the five forces, again, the use of the five forces, the benefit of the five forces. So be familiar with these tools and the reasons for these tools and how these tools can help in the development of a strategic plan. And we know in developing strategic plans, these are some basic foundation approaches to analysis that companies would utilize. And you mentioned the business model, right? The value proposition. So these are some other terms that will come with that we mentioned, just refreshing your memory. And if you think as customers, we want value for money. So the value proposition is each business is saying to the customers, when you buy from us, you get more value for money. And some companies go as far as making promises, right? I see a lot of this on international TV, right? We guarantee, in fact, it's different to the Caribbean that, you see lawyers telling you, our law firm provides better services than X, or they compare products. Johnson's is, we provide a better product than Johnson's. Our product has this, so they actually do comparisons of their competitors. I find Caribbean marketers tend to just focus on their product, but I think the North America and Europe might be a little more aggressive, and the advertisers would actually make these comparisons about how your product is better than the other product. So that's like a value proposition, especially when you come to things like clothes and things like cosmetics or toiletries and things like that, or expensive things, right? That we are arguing we give you value for money, and you state it in your advertising, the particular value proposition that customers would find attractive. And then we are saying you can link, you're looking at the linkage of this whole value proposition to the business model, the linkage to competitiveness, right? That as we mentioned earlier, by trying to keep your costs down, which is the cost component of the business model, the more you're able to control your costs, you're able to do what? At least, so once I'm able to control my costs to as low as possible without, in fact, impacting quality, what are the benefits of doing that? Correct. Right. I prefer to say better prices as opposed to lower prices. I think better prices is right. Because lower can be misinterpreted as low prices, but you can also have in a niche market with very expensive products, you're giving people more value for money. That you're giving them a better price. It's still a high price. You might find a wash roll still costs 40 or 50,000 US dollars, but it's a better price that you might get in other places that might have a 10% higher price, but it's still a high cost, high value item that you're buying. So I prefer to say better prices as opposed to lower. So if we link that to the five forces, to the five generic competitive strategies by Porter, what approach to strategy might focus a lot on lower prices? Which strategy in Porter's five generic competitive strategies? Right, cost leadership. Which one? right, cost leadership, low cost. So that is looking basically just at put that. So that's really trying to keep costs at a minimum, and you're really very low cost items. So I usually use the example. We see it, but sometimes we see it in the Caribbean, but maybe more so in maybe North America, Canada, and those places. So you will see people having things at 29.99, and then somebody 29.98, somebody 29.96, somebody 29.95. So what do you think people are doing that? Is it just trick marketing, extreme marketing? Why do you have these little things 18.99, 18.95, 18.97? Are these different? Hmm? Right, right. It could be perceiving as cheaper, right? Yeah. But why in those markets do people have these sense differences? Right? Because when you have in these basic consumer durables, you know, basic low end durables, where there are hundreds and hundreds of competitors, your margins are going to be like this, you know. So cents matter. So you're selling high volume, but there are many other people that are selling high volume at these low prices. So so that when you got these summer sales and thing, people selling big units. So you're going to sell high volume, but the only way you're going to be able to make your profit then is that your margins are going to be so narrow, right? And because the competition is so intense, there's not a lot of big movement you can make in your prices, right? So what would the economists call it? Price elasticity or price inelasticity? I think it's inelastic. Where the prices, so prices really can't move because the market is so tight and intense, and so many people selling the same thing that the only way you will make profit is by cents. So cents matter then when margins are very narrow. So when you're selling tens of thousands of units, right, in a month, cents matter. But if your turnover is slow, that's why maybe what we do in Barbados, these high prices for cheap things, they call it, you know, things that people go to Miami and buy cheap and they sell them 4 or 5 times the prices here, right? But for you to get on a plane and pay $1,000 ticket to go and buy 3 or 4 pounds don't make any sense, right? So we buy them. Right? But the point we're saying here, for low cost environments, you will tend to find that the margins are going to be so narrow that it's volume then that people would operate on. That the more units you sell, that you will be able to then have your revenues increasing by multiple units. And that's what low cost airlines would do too. Again, they want to have big volumes of people because the prices are low, but by having big volumes of people consistently, in other words, the plane is always full. And because the plane is always full, um, it's what you call the economies of scale then, that the volume over time brings in the revenues that can offset the cost of operations. Right? So you're saying here, focus on managing costs through the value chain, right? So generally, when we look at the business model, we can align it to the value chain in that if you remember the value chain also focuses on managing costs, right? And the business model also focuses on costs and developing a model for how you're going to manage your costs, right? So everybody can remember when we mentioned the bricks and mortar, brick and clay. We touched on that already. Um, Anybody can remember the elements of a value chain? Anybody can remember those elements of a value chain? Was that? Say it again. What do you call it? It's a logistics. So you have inbound logistics, which deals with supply, sources of supply, buying your raw materials, and then you have operations, which deals with right. Operations deal with manufacturing or producing your stuff, and then you have outbound logistics, which deals with the distribution networks, right? Getting it to market. right? We're getting food to market, clothes to market, TVs to market, shoes to market, whatever things you're getting to market. Now, the different perspectives you should appreciate, as we said before, is that you have in manufacturing environments, there are the difference, obviously, to service environments. So the value chain for a manufacturing environment or a wholesale environment would be quite different to a service like in a bank, financial services institution, or even a hotel, right? So the hotel doesn't sell physical products, it sells service even though people come into your rooms, right? So you find in the value chain for, as you say, wholesalers or manufacturers, you're going to find operations is going to be big, where you're converting materials, right? So you're taking some kind of materials, converting, or you're buying materials and storing materials. And in some cases, they gather like courts, and then they actually buy stuff and put it together, put chairs together, put and other things, that are not assembled, and they assemble them, and then you put it to market. But it's a storage, the issue of storage costs. Because once you're a big wholesaler like Courts, you have to have big storage space. And with storage space, it is just not the storage space. What are the things that come with storing stuff? Huh? Right? So cost of electricity, of labor, people to pack the rooms or unpack them, security to make sure people don't steal them. Depending on what it is, it needs to be air conditioned, so the cost of air conditioning units, right? Insurance, you need to insure them, cost of insurance in case something happens, in case of fire. So the cost of storing things can be quite high, right? So that's why people use what, I don't know if you're familiar with the term just in time, where you buy enough stock to get it out. Right? And there's some very sophisticated models that are utilized, accounting models or quality models for just-in-time systems, you see. So then you have the primary value chain is what we spoke about, and secondary, which looks at HR. So where are you likely to find variable costs and fixed costs in the value chain? Sorry? Why? Correct. And where you tend to find your variable costs? Correct. Right. So like in a hotel, you would tend to find a lot of variable costs in restaurant operations and kitchen operations. So as occupancy levels dip, Rory, you because they already, a lot of them are already paid people. So you lay off X amount of staff. If occupancy levels drop from 80% to 40%, you lay off some kitchen staff, room staff, waiting staff, right? So it's generally people in operations. If you have the water, sorry? Read the lecture on that today, and he was speaking about his hotel, and he was saying that like the all-inclusive model requires a lot higher occupancy level to remain profitable. Correct. Because a lot of these costs are variable for regular hotels and fixed costs. For the all-inclusive, correct. Right. Yes. Because people pay up front. Right, people pay up front, and so that cost is fixed. In other words, they pay and you got to deliver. So the assumption is that people have paid and they will come, right? So whereas in other ones, somebody could come and say, I'm not going to eat here tonight, right? I'm not going to go to your bar tonight. But in the all-inclusive, they have already paid for it, so they can demand the service as they want, right? So yeah. Who was it? Peter Odo, right? That runs that's the Brown Mind. Right, Mango's right, yeah. Andy. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's it. So there are the pros and cons of it. There are benefits from it. Right. So as I said, so the appreciating the differences in costs in operations, your fixed costs versus your variable costs, right? You can control your variable costs, but it's very difficult. I mean, you can't control the fixed costs unless you really change the contractual conditions. Because in an all-inclusive, where we want somebody paid, that's a contract, right? You can renege on it and can sue you, right? But at least you can control your variable costs. That production level, that the demand drops, you can drop the cost of labor. You just lay off people, right? You can lay off security. Materials are variable too. You can just stop. Don't buy any more materials for a set of months, right? So you keep a very lean stock. But again, in all inclusives, because people have paid in advance, you need to make sure you have this stock of materials every week to satisfy the demand of what people have paid for. Right? Yeah. So it means then, what does it mean for that in terms of cost management, where you're committed to to produce X amount of items according to the contract? What does it mean now for the operations of the business? How can you manage costs? And if you use the hotel and restaurants as a, but you already bought the product. That's what say you're already committed to buy the product. So where you can find them at a better price. What else can you do? But any, whether all inclusive or the normal EPA type, other than trying to get cheaper costs, what there's some fundamental things you need to make sure that would happen. Yeah. Human resource development. So when your staff utilize these resources, you better make sure they are very well trained not to waste the resources. Because once you buy and stock up these resources, these raw materials, if they misuse them, you exposing yourself to significant losses. So the staff members who are, especially when you're stocking up stuff, huh, you've already purchased them. So your staff need to be very well trained in how to prepare food and don't have wastage, don't misuse. You need to know proper preparation, that you produce something that is really of poor quality. The guests complain, you got to throw it away. So you have to invest in your human resources to make sure that they can perform at a particular standard. So that's where the human resource component comes in within the operations, especially when you have those variable costs. Right? So again, security. You need to make sure security is of a particular caliber. Got issues of collusion. Security is supposed to protect you from losing money, where people are stealing. But if security is not well trained, or security is corrupt, and security gets in collusion, you could be losing so much money before even realizing it until you do your stock take a year after. And by that time, the persons might have left and gone to another job. And you really don't know who was responsible for the theft. Right? And that's very difficult, especially when you store a lot of stuff. And there's collusion, Rory, you know, you understand at the same time, yeah? There's collusion between supervisors, managers and staff, and security. It's very, very difficult, all right? Unless you have cameras and you can pinpoint. Right? All you will know when you do stock take, you have lost hundreds of thousands of goods. But when you ask questions, nobody will know. The managers don't know, supervisors don't know, security don't know, staff don't know. But all you know is, I'm missing a lot of stuff. Right? We're missing a lot of prime steak and prime beef. Right? And I give you an example when I was in a hotel that I should already think I give you an example in the HR that every Christmas, you know, we give the staff these bonuses and then everybody got this big leg ham. And one year they brought in hundreds of leg hams. And like it came the Friday, and by the Monday, about half went missing. And the huge leg hams. And nobody could find out what happened to these leg hams. They just went missing. So you know what that is. And it's around Christmas, so the hotel is busy, you know, busy. But nobody know where they went. And the other one, they bought a pressure washer. I mean, this pressure washer was so huge, you know, to wash down the driveways. It took a truck and about 10 men to take it off the truck. A massive commercial pressure washer. So 10 men took it off a truck. And within 2 to 3 months, it had a problem and it went to maintenance to be fixed. And it was never found again. And they said 10 men, Rory, had to take this pressure washer off a truck. And it broke down and it went to maintenance to be fixed. And it was never seen again. It disappeared. And nobody can tell you what happened, Tanya, to this pressure washer. Right?
No, it'd be interesting if there's a study to see like if you pay workers better, if you save money
from theft. That'd be interesting. That's an interesting one. I never knew. Your hotel, you think it will make any difference? I think some of these people will just steal any opportunity to get. Yeah, yeah, they will still. Yeah, so even at top hotels, who pay really high rates?
But you know it could change because if you pay better, you might attract different people if you give more
Mm,
Yeah, it's a good idea for research. I just
yeah, but I think yeah,
like because for us if we pay more, people will still take stuff.
yeah. I
They
think
just think that they see a lot and just think that I can have some of this.
correct. Yeah, all right. That's my experience, Rory. I think once people see an opportunity to take something that nobody sees, they'll take it. That's the way. From my own experience, that's what happens. So once you don't have security and monitoring mechanisms, and it is there over a period of time, somebody will take it.
And even think about the guest theft is part of it too.
Right, yeah. Well, they do it too, right? Right. Will that happen? Like, especially when you have expensive cutleries and things like that. Yeah, they take them and linens and towels and everything. Yeah, that's a normal thing. Yeah, so we accept that as part of the what do they call it? What do they call it in accounting? Write-offs. Yeah. Right. But they do take, especially expensive cutlery, silvers and things like that. Yeah, they take them. Yeah, they take them and expensive towels. When you got nice expensive towels, bathrobes and things. Yeah.
You charge them, right?
But yeah, to this room, yeah, but they take them. So I think people, I know it's in nature. They see it and they've been there and nobody's monitoring. People just take. But that'd be a good study, though, Rory, the extent to which there's lesser propensity to steal if people perceive that they're fairly rewarded at the high end. Maybe you can go to San Lake. I gather the tips and things that they get on there really at the higher end, you know. So it'd be interesting to find out if they have a problem. You ever work there? That'd be interesting to find out if they have that problem. If they have that, but you see, but Rory, you have a good point, you know, because quite they get, you know, once they have a particular type of, you know, the kind of rich people coming in and depending on the peak times, the people can get paid so well with tips. I mean, yeah. So I was wondering whether they was. But that's what I'm saying. That's what it'd be interesting to find out whether it is as much as in other places. You see, it's whether it's as much, right? 'Cause I have a lady who helps my mom, like a helper, and she works down that court, you know, at the what they call not these cottages, the really big houses. You know, when people come in, villas, right? She works with villas, right? From different villas, a group of companies that run these villas, and and she says sometimes people tip, depend where they tip extremely well. I mean, very very well in terms of tips. You see, so I'm wondering whether somebody is working in a villa and you're being tipped maybe more than your salary, whether there's a propensity. I get where it's going about. Whether the tip is more than my salary, whether there's still a propensity for you to take stuff. You see, so I think it might be the risk that they might say, well, what's the sense me trying to take up two little things when my tips are much more than my salary, right? Sorry, and to keep your job, right, right. So that would be an interesting study. Or you can do that as part of your final thesis. That's an interesting one. I never heard about anybody doing it actually. Yeah, I never heard about anybody doing a study like that. I'm sure the hoteliers would be interested in the Caribbean. That'd be an interesting Caribbean study called theft is a major problem in hotels and restaurants. Major, major. You know, especially prime meats. You in the kitchen dealing with prime beef and prime steak and shrimp and, and lobster. And if you don't have good security, man, and then people leaving with a chef by, wow, yeah, you know, is that propensity. So the areas, folks, as we said here, would be remember the tools, the foundation principles, but in terms of topics, these tools of analysis is an area that you should focus on. How these tools work, the purpose of the tools, the benefits of the SWOT, the OT and the SWOT, the person analysis, the five forces analysis, um, and then the business model. And the business model and managing costs. Remember, the value chain is largely about managing costs, and the business model is about your revenues and costs. So, what is that relationship between the business model and the value chain? So, I should spend some time to those topics as you prepare for your exam, and remember the types of business models that you would have. Now, this is one of the first things we dealt with, and this is another topic that in terms of understanding what is strategic planning, the steps in strategic planning, the processes in strategic planning, its linkage to the wider strategic management, what are its benefits and challenges. So we're looking specifically at the strategic planning process. right? So you do environmental analysis, strengths, weaknesses, look at your competitors, and then you set your long-term goals, right? So you have a newspaper determining, all right, where are we going? Do we go more digital? Where are the competitors? Right? Do your SWOT analysis, set your strategic goals, your operational plans, look at your vision, look at your mission. Some people have their corporate values or your core values, right? So this is one subject area that you should also spend some time on. I think it's one of the first topics we looked at, you see. What are the benefits and challenges of this activity? And so we also looked at competitive and corporate strategies. So the purest form, according to the literature, would be the Porter's 5 generic competitive strategies. Was stated earlier. You have your, so what's the first one? You have your cost leadership, low cost, best value, followed by differentiation, and then the other two are focus, the same thing as the first, focus, low cost, focus, best value. I remember best low cost is the absolute, you're looking for the lowest point that you can go to in terms of cost. And in the terms of in the context of a focus strategy, remember a niche strategy is still a high value, small demand area, but you're still trying to push your cost down to give customers the best value for money. But when it comes to best value, it is relative cost because your focus is still on maintaining a particular quality benchmark while trying to keep your costs down. Right? But the focus low cost would be just trying to find the point at which you can push your cost to the lowest point. Right, so that's Porter's 5 generics, and we had given you the notes. There's a set of PowerPoints I double checked that actually have those. The integration strategies. Everybody know the integration strategies? Backward, horizontal, and forward integration. And then you have market development, penetration, market development, diversification. But I suggest you spend more time looking at the 5 generic competitive strategies. Right? Porter's generic, spend more time on those. So Porter's argument, these 5 strategies are the ones that do. What is Porter's argument? These are strategies that lead to competitive advantage, enhance your competitiveness. So once you're looking at this, you need to be mindful the purpose of it to help enhance competitiveness, eventually to gain competitive advantage. So how do these 5 strategies proposed by Porter, how could they allow you to do it? Whether it's just cost leadership, where the focus is on costs, keeping costs down. The focus strategy is more on a niche, that if you focus on a niche where there's a demand, and remember, the key thing about it is that the company doesn't determine where the niche occurs. The company exploits the demand, and you realize there's a niche opportunity, so you capitalize on it. You see, but companies don't normally create niches. They respond to the opportunity. So where would that opportunity come from? How would you be able to find out the opportunity? Right. But I stated it. Where do you find the opportunity? Right. You do your person analysis and then your SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So all we talked about as the foundation stuff are the necessary things that would help you to identify the 5 forces analysis, right? With the competitive rivalry, the environmental analysis, right? It provides the opportunities up there. You might realize there's a big growth and demand in China, a big growth in Antigua, a growth in Dominica, a growth in Africa. So from doing this in the global or the international assessments, you're able to identify areas where there's big demand. And then the company needs to make a choice whether you want to go into cost leadership, focusing on goods or services that are basically driven by cost versus a niche or a differentiation. So what is differentiation about? Anybody can remind me that? What is differentiation about? Tanya, differentiation? When a product is differentiated, what happens? Lisa, you remember? Correct. So differentiation is when you add unique features to an existing product. So Lisa, your computer is what, HP? So how do you differentiate an HP laptop? Give me some examples. How can you differentiate an HP laptop? Memory, smaller memory, bigger memory. Screen size, bigger screen, 13-inch screen, 15-inch screen, 17-inch screen, 12-inch screen. How else? Resolution of the screen. One has a higher, a stronger or clearer resolution, right? Keys, the touch of, so the more sophisticated it becomes, the higher the price. So the differentiate, so like S4, like the iPhone and Samsung. So you have now the S7, so you had the S3, S4, S5, S6. So even in the S7 range or the S8, they are further differentiated. Like you can have the S8 with 16 gigabytes, S8 with 32 gigabytes, S8 with 64 gigabytes, S8 with 128 gigabytes. And you can have an S, like the Apple have the iPhone 7, iPhone 7 Plus. Right? So all these are little features that they are the little unique features that you can add to a product that we call differentiation. So cars, the car industry is a classic example of differentiation. You have a Nissan, you can have a basic Nissan Sentra, but you have the Sentra GL, Sentra GLX, Sentra GI. So one would have the plain plastic seats, then one has cloth seats, then another has the leather seats, then one has a rev counter, another doesn't have a rev counter. Some has the basic model will have power windows at the front, no power windows at the back. One would have, you have the top end models that would have Bluetooth, the no touch answer phones. The lower model might not have that. All that is what is called differentiation. It's still a Nissan Sentra, but you just have these different features. A bumper, one might have a bumper of nickel, one might have a smaller bumper, grills are different, one would have the wheel cap, another one has the rims, one has a bigger tire profile. So that's all differentiation is about, you see. And what's the intention? Why would the company do that? What is it trying to do? Why would you differentiate a product? Sorry? So what about the target market? So what about the target market? What are you doing? That makes business sense. There's a particular word I'm looking for. Right, according to? Huh? Segmented according to? Is it D word? No. Demographics. Age, gender. It could be psychographics too, right? Demographics or psychographics, correct. Could be psychographics also. Right. So that's how you segment your market. Your demographics, your psychographics. So you're trying to cater to these different needs. The one that want to perceive, I am high-end. So when people drive in my car, there are leather seats, there's Bluetooth, your rims, the little fine touches that you have that tell people I'm in another level than you. I'm not at that level. So that's all about the perceptions of what we're saying. It's how you perceive, the psychology of people of buying habits, right? So psychographics, you're correct, is very powerful in marketing about people's perception of how they're distinguishing themselves from other people. So differentiation allows you to exploit these nuances, I call them nuances in human behavior, right? How people perceive you. So I give you this job. I think I might have said it here. I can't remember. Either here or HR. I remember some years ago, my daughter was at university in Canada, right? Very expensive. I think they are doing a master's in the UK. So I had an old Subaru, right? Very good, very low on mileage, and very strong. Old Subaru J10. If I can get back that car, I will get it back now. That's the best car I had. But old, old little square box. Pretty ugly. It's not an attractive car, but a little tiny. And it's no bigger than a small Suzuki. And one day, a student looked at me and said, a student from Savin said, Dr. Carbon, I have a question for you. I thought, I saw the other day driving your car. So what are you doing driving a car like that? I said, a car like what? You know, like that. I said, what? You know, little brown car. I said, yes. What's wrong with it? But you know, I think a person of your level, you know what I mean. I said, I don't know what you mean, but I understood why because in the summer I actually took a trip to St. Vincent, and I met her and we went out, just to drink, because she had graduated and everything, and she was driving a Honda, a Honda Civic. Oh yeah. So I understood what she was saying. This lecturer, you be driving a little cheap Subaru old second-hand J10, and she is a student driving a top-end Honda Civic. But you see, the whole people perceive things, so she's perceiving that, right. But maybe that's her social orientation. People of a particular profile drive a particular car. So she couldn't understand that I'm supposed to be a university lecturer driving a cheap old car, a second-hand car, right? But marketers love that kind of psychological behavior where people identify, right, with a social group which forces you to behave, dress, and operate in a particular way, right? And most people will behave like that, actually. I find a lot of people find it difficult to resist the social pressure of your social peer groups, right? So you tend to conform to the social peer group, and they tend to push you in a direction, right? So if they drink, you drink. If they smoke, you smoke. If it's a particular type of car they drive, you do that. A particular type of clothing, they into brand name clothing. And once you associate with this peer group regularly, you will find that you tend to conform to what the social group is demanding. Very few people would actually, in fact, if you try to associate with the peer group, somebody might give you a nudge, like, Rory, what's happening, brother? I say, what kind of clothes you're wearing now? They might find some diplomatic way to tell Rory, like, Rory, you ain't dressing proper. I ain't seen the polo on your shirt. Like, what happening here, brother? You got to get with it. You got to get with the group. You got to wear brand name, right? But that's the whole point we're making here about differentiation, trying to cater to these different demographics, these different tastes, these different nuances, the psychology of buyer habits and buyer behavior. Right? But as I said, pay more attention to the 5 generic competitive strategies, right? And the reason why they are utilized. Porter's argument, and the text deals with it quite adequately, right? The textbook has it pretty good write-up on it. So try not, if you want to do any additional reading, try to find reputable readings in the database and the library, or I find Investopedia tends to have some pretty nice stuff. But people write all kinds of stuff on the internet that might confuse you or mix you up, you see. But I think, as I said, I think the text explains it, and the notes that I have in the PowerPoint are quite adequate. And then there are only 2 more areas really that you can focus on, and that is, remember we looked through CSR, and I have one of the recordings up. I remember we have the recordings up in the back. Remember we have the recordings up, so this is already up. So we looked at corporate social responsibility, and as you're studying, you can ask these questions. What are CSR and business ethics, right? What are the key principles governing business ethics and CSR? What are the domains of human action? Remember those domains? The legal action, domain of ethics, domain of free choice or individual choice. Why are they important in business? Who drives CSR and business ethics? Whom do they benefit? What happens in real life? Right? So these are some of the questions that should guide your study. So let me ask you one. Lisa, why are business ethics and corporate social responsibility important in contemporary times? Right, it would. What else? What drives it, Rory, in contemporary times?
But I mean, if you look at like in the US, after the school shootings, a number of companies changed their policies in terms of like how they sell guns or whether or not they support certain gun manufacturers.
Yeah.
Because they found that it was hurting them.
Yes.
There's almost like a targeted campaign that this company sold guns or promoted
right.
gun manufacturing.
Correct. So the social conscience can impact on your business, right? And also, there's a negative one where if you have presidents and board members who are part of stealing shareholders' money, and I say specifically shareholders' money, right? So you have the situation with Enron. I gather the chairman or somebody committed suicide. A whole set of people went to jail from Antigua. You have Alan Stanford in jail. So you got a lot of scams all over where a lot of people misuse shareholders' funds, multi-millions of dollars, and you could really make innocent people end up poor in their old age. People retire, get their pensions, they go in homes and they invest their money in businesses that they think are stable, and the business basically goes bankrupt and all your money gone. Right? So
The whole Odebrecht scandal in Brazil, even the Brazilian president, well, former Brazilian president,
was just found guilty. Yeah, and he's supposed to. He get what 20? It's 12 years or 24.
I'm not sure how long.
I think about 12 years in jail. Yeah, and they said he's supposed to submit himself for arrest.
He was running for the next presidential election and he was expected to win, but of course now he can't.
He was running.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so you find corruption where people misuse investors' funds is a major problem, right? Even in family businesses, sometimes I know a case where a guy who has a family business and he told me that the accountant told him, "You're losing money." He said, "I'm losing money." And she said, his demand is increasing, his revenue is increasing. And he said, "That can't be so." He said, "My business is booming." And his son was managing his accounts, and his son was stealing from him in tens of thousands of dollars. His son, he said he couldn't believe it. He was grooming the son to take over the business, and the son was stealing from, you imagine that, Rory? His son was stealing, nearly put his business in financial ruin, not by the hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. Just playing with the accounts and hiding this money. But the accountant picked it up and said, "You are losing money." And he told him, "No, impossible." Until the accountant did an audit, a forensic audit, and he found out his son stealing from him. And yeah, and dealing with the accounts and just misusing money and spending big with his friends and drinking and buying all kind of crap and giving it away. And yeah, it's sad, huh? That a son stealing from that you're being groomed to take over the business, But you might but he's stealing from himself. It doesn't make any sense, yeah. But that's what had his father so angry. Like he could not believe that his son is stealing from him, and the son is supposed to take over from him. So you imagine stealing from himself, right? Nearly destroyed the business. Luckily, the accountant was able to pick it up quickly. So the point I'm making, that's why ethics and corporate social responsibility, but more so the business ethics, which is about what is right and wrong and honesty and truth, right? You don't go to university to be honest. It's just one of those core principles that will drive human behavior. Hence, you need to put systems in place to make sure that you can protect the interests. But this is a topic, as I said, generally, even in the undergrad course, is a topic I like to put in most of the exams because we tend to focus on the business about strategies and plans and targets and all the models. But this one is the more difficult, but it's about really entrusting people. I mean, like that doctor in the US with the gymnastics girls, and he's taking pictures of the girls and has his computer loaded with hundreds of pictures of it. And these little girls, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And then he apparently was taking like physical exams that should not have been taken. Physical exams, and he should not have been doing these. And the girls are thinking this is normal, right? So you imagine, so I say it's a big area about the ethics in practice and making sure that as you hire people and you make sure that people understand their ethical codes, and maybe hire people who are driven by ethical principles, right? But this is an area one you can consider. And the final topic or subject area would be that of implementing. What is implementation? What are the activities involved in implementation? And why is it important to business? What are the challenges, right? So most of what we dealt with before would be the planning, the conceptualizing, documenting, modeling, and things like that. The challenge now is implementing, where it is not mentioned here, but when you check the notes that we put up on the recording, it is the utilization of resources, right? And everybody here should know what are the resources, Tanya, utilized by businesses in implementation of the plan. You have a strategic plan, but David says a plan is as good as its implementation, meaning there's no excellent plan other than it is implemented. So Tanya, what are the necessary resources to facilitate effective implementation? Anybody? The, huh? The financial resources, the human resources, the physical plant and resources, what else? The technological resources, and the one that most people leave out, information. I separate informational resources. That information for me in itself is a very powerful resource even nowadays, right? And if you check what is happening with Facebook, they had access to millions. I think they're saying, oh, Lorena, if you heard it, they said they thought it was 50 million. It says no, 80 something million people the campaign had. The people who were the data analysts for Trump's campaign had 87 million accounts in Facebook. That's a lot of people that you can have access to their personal account. So apparently they said once they got into one person's account, it was able to link into all of your friends. You see, but for me, I give you the joke. Last December, a number of my friends calling me, happy birthday, Kenta Love. I said, birthday? Yes. You remember on Facebook? I said, oh, I hardly use Facebook. But folks, I don't put my real information in those things. When I register, so I was so embarrassed. So whenever you go on Twitter, I don't put my correct information. I put all kind of junk information. If I'm buying something, you don't have a choice like from Amazon, but other than them, social media, I put all kind of crap. And all kind of people wishing me happy birthday. I said, what are people talking about happy birthday for?
Let's say now that, I mean, every message that you send in Facebook is read and stored by Facebook.
Yes.
Every email you send,
yes.
every word you type on a
yeah.
computer.
Yeah.
Even they say conversations that they say that it records conversations and you have like the mic is always on, but you know like on Siri and so.
Yeah. On Siri?
Yeah, so like even though that like you're not on the phone.
Yes. You're serious? You're serious, Rory?
They did some investigation into it. Like this is not so Facebook admits that they read all the messages. Google admits that they read the emails and so on. This one is not admitted to, but there was an investigation where they were showing that it's done. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's why you got to be very careful, right? You got to be very, very careful what you send and what you release and what you put on social media, you see. You got to be very, very careful. Because you said you don't know who is seeing it or where is it going, right? You got to be very, very careful. So I said I don't put my accurate information on it. I always put in false information. But I said if it's Amazon, of course, if you want to use your credit card, you have to put correct information that matches the credit card. If not, you're not going to accept it.
And nowadays they say like you can go on Snapchat and watch everyone's location where they are, and we say, oh look, Dr. Kwame,
Wow. On Snapchat?
yeah.
Wow. You can't turn it off?
Yeah, you can, but I think its default is it's on.
So you will have to go and turn it off.
Most people don't recognize it.
So what I do with my iPhone, one of the first things I go and disconnect all of those location functions. All. I dislocate all. You see? So even on WhatsApp, you know that you have this, if you're online, people call me and complain. So how come you don't see you online? I said, because I don't want people to know that I'm there. So even for that WhatsApp, I disconnect it, you see? Because if you don't, the default is that people always tell, where you're there. But people get vexed with me, Rory, because they don't see, they don't recognize that I am supposed to. So I might send a message to you, right? And then you realize that I have disappeared. But I take off all those locators because I'm very mindful, you know, that everybody's monitoring you. So whenever you come on, somebody knows update. Oh yes, he's on now. But I'm amazed the amount of people that leave on these things that you can tell they're everywhere about. Right?
Ethically, though, just curious what you think. Because I've seen this situation, somebody calls in sick to work, and then their colleagues have them on social media, and then they see them out partying or,
Yeah.
evidently not sick. Do you think it's wrong for that person to report on that person? Because, I mean, it's not really within a work communication channel that information came to.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It is. It is. Yeah, it's one of those. I say it is the evolving complications of managing human resources in a business because social media does not allow you to live a private life. You see. Yeah, I don't think they should though. I don't think. I know they do. Yeah. Yeah.
If you want a US visa now, you have to give your Facebook.
You have to do what?
Yeah, they changing the visa application
To do
for
what?
the US. You have to give them, I think it should pass 5 years of your social media history.
You are serious? You passed 5 years.
Look it up on BBC.
Wow. So they want to monitor your social media activities. Wow. Yeah, what activities you engage in? Yeah, but I think it's evolving moral issues about privacy, right? I mean, you're not totally private in anything, but I think the extent to which I reserve the right that I can go somewhere. Let me give you an example, right? I went, and there's the technology on the whole. I went to the Carifta Games in Bahamas, right, for the weekend, Easter weekend. The day after I came back, a student came to me, Dr. Corbin, I see you went to Carifta Games. I said, oh, yes, how do you know? Oh, I saw you on TV. So apparently, guy, people normally have these cameras and everything. So apparently, there was a guy, I saw him all about the stands. So apparently, he zoomed in on me. I'm not there, I'm watching my athletics and enjoying myself. So apparently, in one of these the broadcast videos, for the I don't know maybe for the official site, the broadcast that was supported by Flow. He zoomed in on me. So this student is saying they saw me. I saw you. I said that's Dr. Corbin there. So you see what I'm saying, Rory? No, he didn't get permission from me. So this thing is live, and he's zooming on me now, live. Look, suppose I was a married fella, and Lisa, suppose I was married, and I was doing a little extra thing. Big and bold on TV. But that's what happens in social media now. People just take pictures, click, click, and at the same time send. So it's real time. Right? And I think that's the danger of social. The same point you're mentioning, Rory. If somebody determined, I want to do something private, and I call and say, and somebody sees you and records, suppose you went somewhere the night or evening, and somebody recorded it and put it on social media, and then everybody is sending. Should that be something that can be utilized to say that, you know, you,
One of the things people don't understand is that, this we had in the media, is that if you post something on Facebook or any social media and you make it public, the reporters can quote you.
the what?
Because
The
the reporters can quote you. If you put up anything on Facebook, then they can quote you. You see, it's
Wow.
different if you change your settings to private so that only your friends can see it. Because then
Right.
the argument is that you're now invading this person's privacy. Because even if you happen to be a friend with them, they only published it.
Yeah.
to a
Well, in
restricted
fact,
audience.
when I used to use Facebook, I don't use it now. But when I used to use Facebook, it was only private. Right? When I published my book, my children's book, is when I made it public. Because the person that was doing the marketing for me said you will have to make it public. But when I used Facebook, my profile was always private among my friends. Right? I never used it public. But Roy, but you're correct. If your Facebook is public, it means that anybody in the world can communicate with you. So I agree. Yeah, anybody can communicate with you once you have it public. So I agree. So if you make a statement, it's a public statement. So they're correct to say that, quote, Lisa Smith. So folks, let's look at the last thing we'll do now. Just look at these. Maybe we can just look at one and you can practice the other ones. So let me see which one I will look at. Maybe this one. This might be a little more challenging one. So let's look at this question. I have 3 of them. So what you can do, look at them. And as I said, practice more looking at and developing your structure. That's the main thing. Don't try too much to answer as opposed to analyze the question. Break it down. Excuse me. And so you have an understanding what the question is asking you to do. Right? So it says Thompson and Strickland 2004 emphasized that competitive strategy is about being different. It means deliberately choosing to perform activities differently or to perform different activities than rivals to deliver a unique mix of value. Remember, we were talking about the value proposition and things like that earlier. As the company's strategy expert, explain how Porter's 5 generic competitive strategies can be utilized to enhance competitiveness. So how would you go about answering this question? What are the key words and phrases in the question? So explain Porter's 5 generic competitive strategies. What else? What else you would underline? So underline explain. Underline Porter's 5 generic competitive strategies. Underline competitiveness. I will underline enhance and underline competitiveness. Right? Enhance and competitiveness. So what does explain mean? What does explain mean? Explain. Huh? Illustrate is to use the examples, right? So to explain would be to you said to discuss. Make clear. You're making clear, elucidating. You're bringing clarity. You're bringing some clarity to it, elucidating. Making clear. Right? And that is Porter's 5. So it assumes you know what Porter's 5 generic competitive strategies are. Right? It assumes you know what competitiveness is all about. And then it said enhance, in other words, how can you improve? So how can it improve competitiveness? Right? So you can clarify, elucidate, make clear how these 5 things, these 5 strategies or approaches can improve you being able to compete or being able to sell your goods and services in a market that has rivals. I'm using some synonyms there. So how would you go about? So the key thing for us to remember, when you see a question like this, the statement, the preamble statement is just a statement that sets the context. It is not the question. So please don't go and answer a statement, because you cannot answer a statement. Right? Some students go to answer a statement. Don't even worry about writing it over. It's just a contextual thing to help to get you thinking. That's all. That when we do these kind of preambles, it's just to get you thinking, to set a context for you then to look at the question. That's all it's intended to do. It's like a little nudge. So you don't just look at the question dry. The preamble is ready to give you a context, so you say, okay, I think I have an understanding where he's going here, what he wants us to focus on. So I'm asking you to focus on issues of competitive strategies and how things can be different. And then we're looking at the 5 generic competitive strategies. So how would you structure this? Because structure is normally the biggest problem in an exam. So if you had to put it in your own words, Rory, what is this question asking you to do then? What is it asking you to do in your own words? Break it down as much as you can. Right. Just a paragraph?
As much as I know.
Right, yes. But in terms of structure, instead of paragraph, a section on each, right? Should you write on each? Does it require you to write on each?
Yeah.
Right. You can't just pick out 2 or 3. Because it says the 5 generic competitive strategies. You don't have a choice. Right? So you have then, this board sticks. So you would have cost leadership, low cost, cost leadership, best value, differentiation, focus, low cost, focus, best value. Right? And then, so when you look at it, how are you going to look at it then? So let's start with cost leadership, low cost. How are you going to look at that? Correct. So you're looking at not how it will lead to, all right, how it improves. So it can change, how can it improve? How can it add value to? So that's the context. So you have cost leadership, low cost, improving competitiveness. And you can look at all the angles. Sorry?
We should get hypothetical examples.
It's good. I tell students it's always good to use examples, right? Examples tend to concretize things, right? It's always good to use very practical examples as much as in your questions. If the question says illustrate, you don't have a choice, right? But it's always wise to use some very practical examples, right? So let's just answer part of it. So if you look at cost leadership, low cost, how could that improve competitiveness? How can cost leadership, low cost improve competitiveness? Or help a company to improve competitiveness? Sorry?
By cutting costs or getting your cost structure as low as it can be. You can offer the best prices.
So how would that allow you to improve competitiveness?
Because you can offer the best prices, you can leverage that to increase your market share by increasing demand for your products. Assuming that the products are one that we'll see an increase in demand because of pricing, so that consumers are price sensitive to this product or service.
Right. So you said by keeping the cost down, you're able to offer better prices. And the more you can offer better prices, the more customers be attracted to you and they can improve your competitiveness. Correct. So if you look at differentiation, how can differentiation enhance your competitiveness?
By allowing you to better serve needs, wants, and demands of
To allow you to
better meet the demands of specific segments and specific niches.
yes, right. Anybody have anything? So by allowing you to meet the demands of the different segments, how could that enhance your competitiveness? How can that enhance your competitiveness? But how? What's the thing that would improve your competitiveness? The differentiation, right? Because you're meeting the different needs of the demographic group. So what about that allows you to improve competitiveness? There's something you need to add to that. You see, right? It meets the needs of the various demographic groups. Right? So what happens as a result of that? Because you need to conclude that discussion. You understand, Rory? You haven't concluded because you say it is meeting the demands or the needs of different demographic groups. But there's something you need to conclude in that discussion that's linked to competitiveness. Sorry? Why?
Because you also learn different features of a particular product. The person may have the perception that it caters to them.
Right. So it's not just like it's brand loyalty then. Right. So if I can consistently, right, Tanya, meet these needs of these different demographic new groups, right, I can increase brand loyalty. Right. So as a result of increasing brand loyalty, what happens then?
Increasing market share again.
Correct. I'm increasing market share or expanding my market share, right? And by expanding my market share, then is where I'll be increasing. You understand? That's what you need to say then, because you said you're meeting the demands. You understand the point I'm making? Meeting the demands doesn't mean you've expanded market share. All it says, I'm meeting the demands. But the point of, as I meet the demands, people get more committed to the brand and people buy more. And it's in buying more, because I'm meeting these unique needs, that I'm beginning to expand my market share. Because I'm only expanding the market share, folks, because they buy. If they don't buy, I'm not expanding market share. You understand, Tanya? So Rory, just carry the discussion a little further. Yes, you're meeting the demands of the different demographic groups, but as a result, as Lisa said, I'm getting people to become more committed to this particular brand or product or service I have. And as a result of that, people begin to buy more of my goods and services, which allows me to increase my market share. And in increasing my market share and having that commitment to my product and services or brand, I'm enhancing my competitiveness then, because I'm offering something that my customers prefer than my competitors. Right? The fact that they're buying from me and I'm meeting their unique needs is what is giving me that little advantage and giving me the competitiveness that I desire. So the more I can distinctively do that, what happens then? The more I can distinctively do that, what happens? Sorry? Correct. Because this one is about competitiveness. You see the difference, Rory? So the more I can distinguish myself, the more I get this competitive advantage. So the more my market share increases, the more my revenues increase. But remember carefully, I'm saying the more my revenues increase, right? What am I not speaking to? Why am I saying my revenues are increasing? I'm stopping there. Go ahead.
Because you don't want costs.
Right, because profitability is a whole different thing. You understand? So make sure you don't start to just put the brush on everything. That as a result of increasing market share, you increase profits. It doesn't work that all you know you can increase revenues. Profitability now is a function of how you manage your costs, right? Which has nothing to do with your customers. It has to do with managing costs, has to do with your staff, your employees, and your organizational culture, its processes and systems. It's an internal thing. The customers give you the money. How you manage the cost will determine the extent to which you are able to increase your profitability. So you can have a company that does not increase sales, but is more profitable because they're better in managing costs. You understand, Lisa? So you can have one company that sales are constant, another company increase sales by 20%, extend market share, but Rory, they're not as profitable. Because as you increase your market share and as you increase your sales, your company's profitability will not be as high as the companies whose sales are constant. You with me? All right. So what argument could you bring then if you had to recommend to the company a way of improving